Namaskar, hello and welcome to the day 4 of Tete-a-Tete with chroniclers of Modi Rajya. And in this part 1 of this series, we are interacting with the author of a very deep insight student book, The Crusader by Randeep Sisodia ji. And Randeep ji has been illumining us some of the very, I would say, insider views, very insightful views about the Modi Rajya, as we are choosing to call it, the 9 illustrious years of governance under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We started off with his personality and his beliefs, what shaped them, and how that personality and beliefs transcended into a differentiated and a unique style of governance, decisive leadership, a leadership where India is first always, which is fearless of the personal consequences, but then the positive consequences for the nation at large. We discussed that in part 2 of it all. And yesterday was Ganesh Chaturthi, and we embarked upon the Vigna Rahit journey of unraveling some of the key facets which were shaped under his prime ministership. And Randeep sir was so very unequivocal in explaining as to how true nationalism and true secularism got anchored back into the republic. We can call it as the Modivian Republic, because the kind of transformations which have happened in these 9 momentous years are somewhat, if I use a slang, it's quite crazy that way, the kind of outcomes which we have seen. And in our introduction, we said that the enigmatic personality of Mr. Narendra Modi, coupled with the exponentiated efficiency across the spectrums of national discourse, is truly mind-boggling. So today, on day 2 of the narrative part, the key themes that shaped the political narrative during Narendra Modi's prime ministership, we would be learning further deeper about ModiNomics. Sir has touched upon a bit of it as to how precarious India's economic condition was when he took over as the prime minister, and how adroitly he moved on, and what kind of decisions leading up to demonetization, or a lot of other, I would say, convergence of the various banks. A lot of actions were happening behind the scenes. And being a chronicler, as we keep on saying that, jahan na pahuche Ravi, wahan pahuche Kavi. So what in contemporary times, beyond the grapevine kind of a journalism which we see today, the blind cheerleading or the blatant criticism, there is somewhat a balanced academic view coming from a thoroughly credible agency, and based on facts, based on reasoning. And that is what this entire series, this entire tete-a-tete is all about. So without any further ado, I think I would just leave the floor to Randeep sir for his terrifically insightful narratives which he is weaving, and dispassionately watching from, like, जो हमारे यहाँ भारतवर्ष में एक परंपरा है कि व्यास जो थे वो दूर से अपनी दिव्य दृष्टि से महाभारत के उस कौरव और पांडवों की युद्ध का दर्शन कर रहे थे, एक दृष्टा की भांति. So they were not involved into that, but then they were putting up a close to an objective view. So over to Randeep sir for really illumining us more about what lies beneath this ModiNomics, which is really aspiring, soaring high to make India as the 3rd largest economy. We were just very little while back, before the colonial imperialist drained the wealth out of our country. तो सोने की चिड़िया जो हम थे, और अभी ही विश्वकर्मा योजना का एक शुभारंभ हुआ है, and through this milieu of nationwide momentous, I would say, very aspirational schemes which were never heard of, and the kind of energy which goes back into that, what kind of impact are we seeing, that cascading impact, that integral impact of economic actors across the board. So over to Randeep sir.
Yeah, good evening, Raghavji, and good evening to all your viewers. And economics, as you know, since I've been a student of economics, is of special interest to me. But having studied economics, I know it's also a highly technical subject. So to gain people's attention while we go through this is going to be difficult generally, because because of the technicalities and people don't understand. So my attempt would be to explain things in a very layman language so people can easily understand, and not get into too many jargons of economics. Yeah, some of it, but some of it are very generic, which people already know, like GDPs and inflation, and the growth rate of the FDI and all that. So people have been hearing that, so that should be okay. So I think to understand Modi's vision of economics, it is important to understand, go a little bit back in history. As you did mention that India was probably the largest economy just before the invasions happened. In fact, it was around 30 to 40% during the golden period, which goes back to 6th, 7th, or maybe 3rd, 4th century. And then, of course, even during the Mughal period, our economy was around 25% of world, overall, pie. And then at the time when the British left, it was just merely 4%. And you will be surprised to know that in 2014, it had gone down further to 3%. So, if you ask me who looted India the most, it is the imperialist, or is it the party who governed us, for the maximum period of time after independence? I think, most of the people will answer in the latter, So now coming back to, we just need to go a little bit back during the time of Vajpayee ji. And that Vajpayee ji had taken over, the economy or the governance immediately after, or a little while after Narasimha Rao left. And the economic liberalization had taken place. So the economy was on the rise. And Vajpayee ji took it further up to around 8%. So 8% was the growth rate at the time when Vajpayee ji left. And also to add to that, the inflation across period of Vajpayee rule was less than 4%. So that was such a, I think the economy was in a sweet spot when, Manmohan Singh took that over. And within a couple of years into Manmohan Singh rule, what started happening was that while the economy grew, because the momentum was there, so economy did keep on growing, or probably 8 or maybe kind of giving a steady growth, but the inflation also started rising. From 4%, it went to 5, 6, 7. And by 2010, the inflation had gone as high as 12%, And that was also the time when actually the growth also started petering off, right? So, so much so that the time when, Manmohan Singh left, the growth had declined to 4.2%. So that was the precarious time when Modi took over. The deficits were so high, the inflation was still at above 10%, and the economy was slowing down. Later on, uh, I think it was in 2018, and I did mention that earlier also. I write this in my book also, that Modi explained in the parliament as to what really had been happening. And just before that, you will notice, and I think generally people know that whenever Congress comes back, the inflation goes up. And that is generally true if you look at the inflation figures over the years. So before Modi, before Vajpayee ji, the inflations were very high, and when Vajpayee era and the BJP rule, it came down to 4%. Throughout the Manmohan Singh rule of 10 years, inflation averaged around over 10%. And now, during Modi rule, the inflation is still very controllable between 5 to 6%, and that too when globally we are seeing record-breaking inflation across the globe. In the West, in fact, there was never a situation when India's inflation was lower than West. This is the only time, in spite of high inflation of 6-7%, our inflation has been lower than the West. Which is phenomenal, to have achieved that. Coming back to explanation which Modi gave in terms of inflation. So what was happening is that, the, the corporate loans started going up. So Modi explained that, from independence to 2008, the government or the corporate loans which had been given to the banks was only around 18 lakh crores, right? Then between 2008 to 2014, nearly double that. So around 32 to 34 lakh crores of loan was given to the corporates. And most of the loans were given to unscrupulous, cronies of UPA. And he very famously talked about phone banking, to how the phone used to go from the finance ministry to the banks, directing them to lend loans to all these unscrupulous invest or unscrupulous players who would then use or misutilize the public money to grow their own personal wealth. And generally, if you see, I don't know if you recall, but statements made by the then finance minister and even Kaushik Basu, who was probably the advisor in some capacity, I think RBI advisor or something, and their view. So their thought process was that you flush the market with money, and market will also take care, and the money will trickle down to the masses all across. So that was their idea of growth, which is to flush the market with in fact, Kaushik Basu is even there on record to say that black money is good. That was their thought process, and I think Chidambaram would also indirectly agree to that. So that is why the inflation also had gone up. Now their view was that, as I mentioned, that the money, the resources will trickle down to the poor, but that really doesn't happen, because let's now take the example of go back and take the example of what Rajiv Gandhi said when he mentioned that only 15 paisa of 1 rupee was reaching the poor. Now, when legitimate money through legitimate process, only 15 paisa or 15% of the money was reaching, in a jungle environment wherein black money is operating, there are no rules. How much do you expect the money to really trickle down to the poor people? Probably less than 1-2%. That was the issue, that the money was generated, but then it was limited to a select few, the cronies, and that was also being misutilized. A lot of money. That was the reason it went out through Hawala, and there was a hue and cry. In fact, 2011, there was a hue and cry because the market has really hot up. It got heated up, and then finance minister, I believe it was Pranab, who actually, asked the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy to conduct a survey and find out how much black money was there operating in the economy. And while the report was never made public, but we know through sources that they had come up with a report which stated that around 72% of the economy was on black. And as I mentioned earlier, Professor Arun Kumar, who's a known economist of yesteryears, he also had written an article in Economic and Political Weekly, and he had arrived at a figure around 60%, black money. So what was really happening was that all this money, and then of course on top of it you had the scams. You had the
Mm.
coal scam, and you had the 2G scam, and then you had the defense deal scams. So a lot of the money which was public money was getting pilfered away. It was leaking, and very little of it was really reaching the masses, who really deserved that money. And so that was basically the situation. So when Modi came in, he had to clean up the whole thing. The economy had to be cleaned up. One of the few things, the very first thing obviously he did was to start tracking the black money, and all that money which was pilfered away. So they signed treaties with a lot of governments, like Singapore, which are actually tax havens, Switzerland, Singapore. There were 3, 4 other countries that they signed a treaty so that they will start sharing bank details of Indians who had stashed up money over there. This is basically, again, Modi was then starting to plug all the gaps. Then the second thing, which was a big thing which came in, was the bankruptcy code, which was
Mm.
brought in, which is basically to tighten the screws at the banks in terms of loans, and to ensure that all the parties who had taken those loans, either they return the debt with interest, or then they had to be declared bankrupt so that the banks could then sell off their assets and get the money back. Because at that point of time, when all these loans were being dispersed, there was no audit, there was no control. In fact, when they were unable to pay back the debt, the banks were directed to top up the loan, so that then they will be able to, over a period of time, utilize that money well and start paying the debt back. But that never happened because they knew what was the real purpose, and real purpose was really to loot the country. And people, right?
Intention was nowhere. You mean to say that the intention was nowhere to put it on real remunerative projects? It was to siphon it off.
Yeah, it was siphon. It was not for any productive. I mean, I'm not saying everything, but
Mhm.
you get the gist. Yeah, you get the idea. Which what I'm stating is that a lot of it was going, towards unproductive sectors, which was basically uh, used for corruption and for just kind of stashing, or actually converting that into their own private wealth.
Mhm.
So that was really happening. I mean, a lot of economists have called those 10 years as the lost decade. This
Mm.
was the reason. I mean, there was no assets getting generated, so there were no jobs. So that was also a jobless decade. A lot of people are calling it it was jobless growth. Why it was jobless growth? Because it was not being used for productive purposes. And since it was not being used for productive purposes, either it was going through Hawala route or getting stashed in banks, a few corrupt players. And that is why all that was happening. So that is why the cleaning was required. And then the IBC came, like I said, we signed the treaties with the bank that at least at that point, future onwards, at least the money will start not going out. The banks would be a lot more careful. So there were rules put in place in terms of, what are the key factors, in terms of providing loans to the players and to ensure that they repay back and they put it for productive use. So that happened. And then the point was, how do we clean up the economy, which had 60 or 70% of the black money? So that is when that was the whole idea behind demonetization. But of course, there were other things also. There were so many objectives which could have been met. Obviously, it was also linked to terror financing because a lot of that money was going towards that also, as we know. And probably we'll discuss that topic in our national security when we discuss national security in one of the next episodes. But the point being that Modi was attempting to clean the market first. The idea was to clean the economy first. So that happened. Demonetization happened, and then one very big thing, GST. GST came in, and that was again to streamline indirect taxation. There were so many different taxation. Every state had different sales tax, and there were a lot of complexities. It was extremely complicated, because of which again the taxes was getting siphoned off. There was a lot of leakage. But then GST came in, everything was streamlined. And while they were teething problem initially, and every system will have a teething problem, and this was a countrywide system, getting implemented at such a large scale, obviously there would have been teething problem. But today, if you see, we are getting a record, GST on a monthly basis. I mean, today it is touching 1.5, even 1.6 lakh crore per month. And now let's see what is the impact of all these things. So I'll tell you that the direct tax collection in 2014 was to the tune of 11 lakh crores, right? Now in 2024, our direct tax collections are going to be to the tune of around 20 lakh crores. So in 10 years, we are going to nearly double our direct tax collections. Okay, so this is not the end of it. Now the most surprising part is indirect taxation. Indirect taxation in 2014 was only around 5 lakh crore. Okay, and this indirect taxation in 2020 is going to be again close to 20 lakh crores. So 4 times more. So which clearly tells you that a lot of public money was getting siphoned, because economy hasn't grown by 4 times. The economy actually in the last 10 years has doubled. So from 2 trillion in 2024, we will be close to 4 trillion, right? So it has only doubled, but our taxation, indirect taxation has gone up by, 4 times. So that is the kind of, money that we have been able to generate or plow back, into the system. And then there's this whole jam thing which we talked about earlier. Today, around 25 lakh crores of subsidies are going through the JAN, to the direct transfer benefit program. From that, I think the latest figures which I got was that we were able to save around 2.5 lakh crores in terms of leakages, just because everything is now digital. So all the transfer are happening without any leakages. So that is the kind of change which has come in the economy, which is really transformational. So earlier, from what was happening was the tap of money, which was black money, which was opened up. Modi closed that tap, and then what happened is he cleaned up the economy, right? So that the other thing which happened in GST was, once the GST was brought in, I forgot to mention this earlier, from around 60 lakh units who were registered in GST before, who were registered before the GST came in, the number went to 1 crore. So it was, again, I mean, so a lot of entities which actually weren't registered. So forget about paying. They eventually had to get registered, because then now there was no way they could have avoided tax. So all those leakages were stopped, and the businesses had to come out clean, which meant that the governments started getting the taxes which they deserved. And once the taxes came in, that is when the government had the sources to spend. And that is when you saw, there was a huge push on infrastructure, huge push on welfare schemes. You talk about 12 crore toilets, you talk about 4 crore houses. Yeah, today we are looking at 14 crore tap connections, 10 crore of gas connections, electricity for all. And now we had the PM Kisan Nidhi, which is putting money in the pockets of the farmers on quarterly basis. So that is around 2.5 lakh crore of money, around 14 crore people. And then there's so many other schemes. So the tap of black money was closed. It was switched off, and the tap for welfare started off. And all that money was coming from clean businesses. So what Modi did was, he disaggregated economic growth and development. So economic growth had a free rein. It's only that the corporates or the entities who were producing, they were asked to go clean. So everybody started paying tax, and the development piece, the government took, or the welfare state, I mean, the welfare schemes were taken. I mean, it was government's responsibility to then start percolating that down, as opposed to what was happening earlier, which was that money was being sent, it was put in the market heated up, and the government sitting on their haunches, expecting that eventually it will trickle down, and the masses also will do well. So that is why I say that while there's been a lot of talk on socialism, and we have all these great socialist leaders, but for me, if you ask me, I think Modi is the greatest socialist leader which this country has seen, who has not just talked. He's hardly ever talked, but he has delivered on the ground. And I think that was the main reason why Modi won also in 2019. And I think he's set to win, from all the indications which I'm getting today. He's set to win 2024 also. So that's broadly, the idea was to explain it in a very simple way, so that people are able to understand.
So if we have to encapsulate the entire, I would say, intertwined steps of ModiNomics in a kind of academic discourse, like what it actually means in a couple of sentences. So how would you like to define it succinctly?
Yeah, so you see, I tell you, there's a term which is used in economics, which is called value judgments, which basically means that when you have limited resources, right, those resources must be distributed in a way that maximum people are able to benefit, right? And you need to do that ethically. Now, if you see what UPA did vis-a-vis Modi did, it will be very clear. So the limited resources, the ethics. I mean, what Modi is doing is, ethical economics. And what was happening in UPA was all unethical, which was that while you had limited resources, the resources were going to a lot less people than it should have actually gone to. Probably the minimum number of people it went to during UPA rule. And during that is primarily because of unethical means and the intentions not being there. With Modi, the limited resources went to the maximum number of people. And because of ethics, he was able to generate a lot more resources in comparison to UPA, which UPA should also have generated. But because of their unethical practices, they did not, or they were not able to generate for the people who really deserved it. So that is in a nutshell,
It's ethical
how I would like
economics.
to.
So it's ethical economics that the state would extract the ethical dues from whosoever has to pay, and it will
Exactly.
redistribute it in a very accountable and a very targeted
It's a
fashion
very,
to those who need it.
yeah, and so that is where sabka saath, sabka vikas comes in. Following the principle of justice, following the principle of equality, the most deserving people will get it first. So that is where, the Revdi thing, Revdi is different from welfare, because welfare goes to the people who really need it. And Revdi, you are just simply distributing to everyone. It's so surprising. I'll tell you, in Punjab, I'm sitting right now in Punjab, and today I mean, you and I, we are from well-to-do families, right? We are middle class, but then, we at least have the capacity to pay our electricity bills. But, very good families who can actually pay electricity bills, they are getting zero bill. So why are people who have the resources, who have the capability to pay bills, are just being given it for free? So you talk about bus rides free for women, but then why should an extremely prosperous woman not pay for traveling in a bus? I mean, you're just kind of misutilizing that money. And this is where the value judgment over there is extremely wrong. So what Karnataka government or Delhi government or now Punjab government is doing is not ethical. You ask for a student or from a student of economics, they'll tell you this is, and that is why Modi gave it a name of Revdi. So that is
Basically, the
that.
state exchequer, whatever is extracted as a tax money, it is being doled out on non-critical areas, very lower octave of populist measures, rather than investing it for accentuating further growth of the economy. So,
Yeah, exactly.
expenditure part also,
See,
yeah.
see, the point is, you need to uh, give a roof under deserving people's head. You need to ensure that they have a basic, food to eat, to at least 2 meals a day to eat. You need to ensure that they get water. You need to ensure they get electricity so that their kids can, study. And once all that happens, those people then become productive. And once they become productive, they do jobs and they earn money, and then the whole this virtuous cycle gets created. So if you have job, you'll earn money, then you'll spend. Spending means there'll be more capital investment, there'll be more factories which will come up, there'll be more jobs, there'll be more
This
products,
part of
and so on, so
ModiNomics
on.
is actually hard work, harder work. It
Yeah,
is easier to dole it out and
yeah,
to gain that electoral sway rather than
yeah,
really putting that money into schemes and programs and targeted distribution, because that
yeah,
means true hard work, sweating,
yeah.
perspiring. So
So
perfect.
it's so generating resources is hard work,
Mm,
which Modi and the BJP governments are doing. But
mm.
you don't have the resources, but you just want to distribute. Then take loans and keep on distributing and build up the debt. And tomorrow, the whole economy of the state is going to collapse. And this is what the non-BJP governments are doing. I mean, some of them, like, I talked about Delhi, it's happening now in Karnataka and Punjab, it is happening. And then there are a few other states also. I think few states are doing a good job. Non-BJP states, like if you look at Orissa, they're doing a good job. I mean, you have to give credit where it's due. But then a lot of the other states are not.
But somehow the forthcoming elections, perhaps we are seeing the same kind of pre-electoral reveries under quote coming out in states like Madhya Pradesh because of the pressure, political pressure, which is being felt out.
Yeah, so I think that is unfortunate, so that's part of competitive politics. But I hope and I wish that at least BJP, which wants to create a role model, they would avoid those reveries wherever possible. So yeah, I mean there could be some exceptions. I don't know exactly. Yeah, I know that Madhya Pradesh, I mean, both parties have announced some welfare measures, but I don't exactly know right now what are the details on that.
So
Yeah.
because today's topic is ModiNomics, and one of the core concerns, like the new world order, because this concerns in a big way that the 1%er economy is growing globally. It is not just an India phenomena because of the advent of technology. The productive power, somehow the other, the big finance and the big technology coming together.
Yeah.
So somewhere or the other, the newer models of redistribution or inclusion in the economic productivity, because now with the technological automations in place, things like that, the quantum of jobs, howsoever we can say. So how in your understanding, like, because these things are growing at a much faster pace and a polity can really take charge of it, like newer and newer innovations had to be brought
Technology,
about, like Agniveer
So
Yojana and things like
excellent.
that. Yeah. So
No,
the
excellent
pressure
question.
on the
And
yeah.
yeah,
So
no,
how
excellent
Modi
question.
is
And I
trying to
think,
handle it? Yeah.
yeah, so I think it's an excellent question, because I think what you're asking me is what about the future, where the priorities are going to change. I mean, we are looking at now renewable energy. We are looking at biofuels. We are looking at environment friendly products. And I mean, if we are looking at digital, which is going to be, these are the future technologies. And if you look at India has already taken a lead of that. So I think India's approach has been extremely futuristic. I mean, if you look at digital today, 40%, more than 40% of transactions globally are happening in India. India is number one in digital. You talk about ethanol in diesel and petrol. And India is already doing 20%, adding 20% of ethanol. Now they're going to be, focus on biofuels. We are talking about electric vehicles, and Gadkari is creating an infrastructure already in terms of growth. While the automobile sector is doing extremely well, within that, the highest growth, segment is the electric vehicles of the future. And we are creating an infrastructure for that. So a lot of the future technologies are already getting applied, implemented, and developed in India. Now let's look at one of the other aspects, why I'm so bullish about India and India's economy in the future. If you look at the startup sector, now startup sector in India is mostly on digital or technologies around IT and IT services. And in 2014, we only had one unicorn. One unicorn means market capitalization of more than thousand crores plus. Of any new setup.
$1 billion market capitalization. Yeah.
Yeah, of 1,000 crores and above of a new entity. There was only one such in 2014. Today we have more than 100. So, and they are employing the new startup system is employing around 15, 20 lakh employees, employing 15, 20 lakh people across India. And this is only going to grow. We have the third best ecosystem, startup ecosystem in the globe. In fact, we have more IT employees in Bangalore than there are in Silicon Valley today. We have the highest talent for IT, across the globe. And that is all around, technology development. And also over a period of time, we are seeing government is putting a lot of focus on R&D. There are a lot of investments going on. I think last year budget, there was 50,000 crore allocated for R&D. That was basically, I think, between there was a committee set up that was to be uh, co-chaired by industry as well as academia. And of course, government was the third party in that, and it was going to infuse 50,000 crores. And then, of course, the rest was also going to come from industry. And so that is already, that process is being put in place, and those institutions are getting created so that, there is impetus on research and development, because that is how the top economies are going to function in the future. So whosoever has the highest, innovation, whosoever is higher on innovation is probably going to be at the top in terms of economy in the future world. And I think we are seeing that global investors, they are noticing this, and that is why they are extremely gung-ho about India. I mean, there are these big consulting firms, experts who are global, who are saying that India is the bright spot in global economy, while the globe is in gloom, but India is doing extremely well. That is why we have record FDIs. So we have around 600 billion FDIs now. I mean, last year we had 70 billion coming in. This year, probably going to be close to that or even more than that. So that's the proof of the pudding. I mean, the global investors are not fools. I mean, they assess and analyze each and every nation, and you have to look at this way. Let me ask you a question, and you will yourself get the answer. Today, first of all, there's a lot of money globally available for investments, right? There's a lot of money available. It is just that, so which are the markets where they can invest, you ask me? Now you tell me, you answer that question. Will you invest in China? No. I mean, no. I mean, which other markets are there? I mean, US, of course, it is there. But then which other markets would you look at? And amongst the lot, if you look at a comparative level, then India probably shines out. We have the we already have the we are the number one country in terms of population, but also more importantly, our middle class is enlarging. There's more money in the hands of more and more people coming in, which means to say that already big market is going to be even bigger market in the future. So, and then of course, the supply chains, decoupling of supply chains from the China, which is China plus one policy. So India, I feel, is in a great sweet spot. And there's the other thing, which happened in COVID, how the challenge was turned into an opportunity, wherein, and again, I think full credit to Modi in terms of what India did to shore up economy vis-a-vis most other markets, especially in the West. So what the West did is they put the money in the hands of the people. They focused on the demand side. And what India did was we focused on the supply side. So we started investing more in capital so that grows, then more people get jobs and it creates a virtuous cycle. And since the West put the money in the hands of the market, whereas, the supply side was ignored, that is the reason the markets got stashed with money. And, there was huge inflation in the West. But that did not hit us, primarily because we used the money for the right thing. So we did not heat up our markets. They heated up their markets. That money went into, in the market and in the hands of the rich investors who kind of, put money in it was more on the speculation side, and there was hardly any productive outcomes in terms of, material assets.
Mhm.
So that is where, they lost out, and that
The
is the
one
result.
natural, one curiosity, like if we summarize the entire spirit of ModiNomics, on one hand, it is extremely ethical, process-driven, technology spearheaded, so that there are no leakages for that matter. On the other side, it is integral in nature. Like while on the top end of the spectrum, like as you very nicely explained, that the entire startup ecosystem has been supercharged, and the ecosystem has been so that we start inventing the technologies of the future. We might have
Yeah,
left out in the other tech, I would say, evolutions, but we are really working hard for the next generation. And other extreme end, like what we saw on 17th of September, the Vishwakarma Yojana, where around 18 trades,
yeah,
the conventional trades were picked up, and they're reskilling, upskilling, and they're helping them out. And then the other middle tier Yojana of Mudra. So the whole continuum, the integral circuit of the whole pyramid, the economic pyramid of the country.
yeah,
How
yeah,
do you
yeah,
see, how do you envision, like, as you said, and there's a high probability that Modi ji would be making an hat trick and putting this ModiNomics further into, I would say, institutionalizing it. And then more and more scholars like you would be further delving deeper as to how it will
yeah.
move on. Where do you see this steep pyramid, the 1%er economy, getting more into a diamond bulge? Uh,
No,
uh,
so that's already happening. As you yourself mentioned, the Mudra scheme.
mhm,
If you look at, uh, I think, yeah, 21 lakh crores uh, have been disbursed through that Mudra scheme, and I think 37 crore loans have been passed. So, you can imagine that, okay, out of 37 crores, there probably loans have been gone to the same person repeatedly also. But yet, I mean, even if one person, let's say, I think, up to the maximum level, one person would have taken 4 loans, after having returned the earlier loan. So, which means that still over 10 crore, and this is poor people, 10 crore people who utilize this scheme. And, the beauty is that the NPA, they call it non-productive assets, have only been 3.3%. So, which means to say that 97% of the people are productive because they are able to return those, they're able to return their debts on a timely basis. And then you add on to the fact, because they have their own businesses. So, on an average, if they are giving a job to 1%, so that means, straight away, 20 crore people have some ways of being productive. That is one. Now, then the other aspect is, because of so much of capital spending that the government is doing in terms of infrastructure. I talked about the other day, 100 lakh crores of investment are going to go over a period of 5-6 years. Now, and so many other things we talked about. We talked about, the startup system, and the fact that the economy is really opened up. So government has opened up sectors like all the sensitive sectors. Also, even defense has been opened up. The space and technology has been opened up. So there are a lot of drones being made by private companies. The Google Map, the maps thing we are looking at. I'm forgetting the name of the industry, but that huge industry, huge potential industry for the future, that has opened up. And so the economy is getting opened up, sectors are getting opened up. So that obviously is generating a lot of jobs, because of which, I mean, just few days back, there was a report by the SBI, the economic advisor of SBI, Mr. Ghosh, Soumya Ghosh. The report came out, and it said that there have been, around 5.2 crores jobs which have been generated in the last 4 years. And this is in the formal sector. So I'm not talking about the Mudra scheme and the informal sector, the MSMEs and all that. So if 5 crore jobs in the last 4 years have been created in the formal sector, and formal sector is only about 10 to 15% of the overall, sector of the informal sector. So informal sector also has created a lot many jobs. So, opposition has been crying about 2 crores jobs a year, but I believe there are more than 2 crores, 4 crores jobs being created on every on a yearly basis in the system. So all these jobs creating, money getting in the hands of the people, the consumer spending in increasing, and because of that, the investments also now have started increasing in the private sector. So today we are around 31% of investment of the overall GDP, which is a very good figure, and which clearly denotes that the economy is going to do well in the future.
That's
So that there are very strong indicators that India economy is already doing well and is going to do well in the future, because like I said, the spending is going, the investments are going up as a percentage of GDP. The jobs are going up. The spending is there.
Mhm.
And we are getting the FDI, and the whole globe. The sentiment is very positive about on India, and that matters a lot.
Mhm.
That matters a lot. Markets are all about sentiments, and
No.
now the sentiments for India is extremely positive. I think we just need to encash it. Now the only thing is, I think over a period of time, we will need to, and I think the Modi government is going to reduce tariffs so that we become a little bit more open to the globe, and it becomes a little bit more attractive.
Mhm.
The PLI scheme, the production linked incentive scheme, has been a big hit. And I think we are going to see benefits coming out of that. And I am definite that the overall manufacturing output as a percentage of our economy is going to go up. It's been stagnant for a
I
long
think
time.
I think while
Around,
we're coming to the close of this lovely, because Randeep sir being a student of economics and a deep expert out there, the innumerable interventions which ModiNomics, he summarized the ModiNomics into like it is essentially an ethical economics. It is a process driven. It is a visionary frontier. What has been going on from the precarious condition of 2014, when India was really into the club of the fragile five. Now it is a fascinating Bharat, which is really giving that confidence and the luster. What he said, that innumerable interventions are somehow creating a kind of a symphony for the welfare of all, and sabka saath sabka vikas, and then when he added sabka vishwas and sabka prayas, so the quad of this sabka is essentially driving towards that I would say mystical, or the in the Indian parlance, the idea.
so just one point I want to make. This is on what the opposition says, that we would have been fifth largest economy, and it's automatic that we'll
Uh-huh.
become third largest economy. It is not true.
Mm.
And this is the reason, all the discussion we've had today, there's been innumerable initiatives that the Modi government has taken. They've actually transformed in terms of how we actually make policies for the economy. That is the reason why we become the fifth largest, and that is the reason why we'll become the third largest also.
And what sir explained in one of the earlier sessions, that politics and governance, Politics is part, gaining the trust of the people at large, giving them the transformative leadership is all about giving that vision and earning that franchise from the people at large, and then using that power, using that political power to run a very decisive, integral governance, perhaps. And we would summarize, we initiated this entire series with that aspirational Ram Rajya, जो कि भारतीय चित्त मानस और काल में शाश्वत समय के लिए रहा. And when defining Ram Rajya, the first line is so very important, and somewhere or the other, this Modi Rajya has been able to accomplish it to a significant extent, that Daihik Daivik Bhautik Tapa, Ram Raj Nahi Kahu Hi Vyapa. The way 80 crore people are being given free rations so that no one is going to sleep hungry, I would say empty stomach. The way Ayushman Bharat Yojana has enabled the last man in the queue to really avail of the critical health problems. I think that's where, and in the COVID vaccination, like it was a massive mammoth exercise which India conducted, that natural calamity which came all of a sudden. So somewhere or the other, the ideals are towards that civilizational prosperity of Bharat, what we have been doing it. These are, they look like slogans, but when we meet and converse and delve deep into this kind of deep dives with experts like Randeep sir, I think they come so very often, how these aphorisms do translate into real policy programs. And I would say at the end of the day, the performance, because if 2.3 or 3% NPA of the Mudra Yojana, because the intention is so very pious, the process is so very elaborate. So I think India is truly marching ahead, and sir also assured that how the pyramid, the steep pyramid globally, at least in India, it is moving towards becoming a diamond, so that we have a large bulging middle class, small, I would say the 1%er as the critical commentary in the Europe or Western part, that but India is somewhere in a middle path we are adopting.
We are better place. Yeah, we are better place.
We are much better placed, and the hope, the structural mechanism, the hard work which is going out there, the aspirational futuristic vision. It's perhaps for the first time that someone is looking 25 years ahead. Amrit Kal is not just a slogan alone. It is an elaborate plan, a mix of micro interventions going to the last mile of it all. And as Modi ji is known to, as sir in his initial aspects, that how that PM Gati Shakti Yojana, one example, he has been anecdotal in a phenomenal manner, that how eye for detail, getting involved, getting hands-on, really make the transformation happen, bringing so many departments together, breaking the silos, and creating an integral vision. I think that is the quintessence of Modi Rajya. We'll be continuing this lovely interaction, this lovely learning, and a kind of a repository beyond the book. The book talks phenomenally much deeper details what Randeep sir has encapsulated over there, and perhaps we might be looking for the sequel of it in the post 2024 session, maybe how Modi would win the 2024 elections. Perhaps he might be working internally for that. Tomorrow it will be all about the national security implications, and every action had that integral view, as sir mentioned even today, that even demonetization had an eye towards demonetizing the terror networks, the terror financing, squeezing them out. So we'll meet again at 9 p.m. tomorrow. So till then, namaskar.
Namaskar.